Thankfully, some countries do have their heads screwed on, and one of those seems to be Hungary. The Hungarian President Viktor Orban has announced an income tax exemption for mothers of 2 and 3 children and said he would cap interest rates on housing loans at 5%. Now, they're heading into this national election, but I personally think there's a lot of merit in these ideas. Let's check it out.
We are launching the largest tax cut in Europe, and indeed the entire Western world. With this, we are opening a new chapter in the history of the Hungarian economy. We are creating the world's first family-centred economy. Mothers with 1 child will be exempt from income tax until the age of 30, while mothers with 2 or more children will never pay income tax again. Even by the modest standards, this is a global sensation. With this, we are securing the future of Hungarian families for decades to come.
In early 2022, the global fertility rate fell below replacement rate. That means around the world, we are not having enough children to replace ourselves. In developed countries, it's even worse. Every single developed country has a fertility rate below replacement rate, except for Israel. Even India is now at a sub-replacement rate fertility level. Now, the problem with this is that when you have a declining working population, the age dependency ratio shifts. So more young people have to support a whole lot more old people. A lot of countries, like Australia, will look to migration to fix this. Well, let's just bring in more people and we can boost our population that way. But those migrants also get old, and after 1 or 2 generations, they tend to have the same amount of children as the country that they're now in. So sub-replacement level fertility again. One country that is taking this into their own hands is Hungary. And I think this is exactly the sort of thing we need to be looking at in Australia, because the challenge for women particularly, and all families in Australia, is that 1, it is extremely expensive to have children, but 2, it's not something that is valued by our society. The extent of family policy is childcare subsidies, which effectively says to women, pump out a baby, ship them off to institutional care and get back to work. That is not what a lot of women want. They want choice in how they raise their children. So I think this is something we need to be looking at. What do you guys think?
Well, the Prime Minister of Hungary said, we want to leave our country to our children, not to foreigners. And as you said, if you're not going to produce your own children, then you've got to import other people, because the welfare state is premised on the fact that you will have enough young to support the old. Hungary have tried various measures. They've offered interest-free loans to families with children, housing subsidies. They offered tax exemptions to mothers with 4 or more children. Now it's mothers of 2 or 3 children will get...
Or 1 child also, until you're 30.
Until you're 30.
If you have 1 child, you're tax exempt.
But it's for the rest of your life if it's 2 or 3 children.
Post 30,
I should point out the Prime Minister of Hungary's got 5 children himself. So he's leading by example. Their birth rate's been falling since the 1970s. So, you know, as Mark Stein says, demography is destiny. Mm-hmm. If you don't address this one way, then your country disappears. And this is probably the biggest story, I think, of our time, that what's happening in Europe. You're not allowed, you've got to be very careful talking about it because it's such a fraught subject. But it is the big story, because Europe will cease to be Europe if it's just full of different people. So whether it's Italy or Hungary or Austria, they need to produce their own children if they want to keep their own culture as we know it. Otherwise, it will become something different. Hungary have decided we want to leave our country to our children, so we'll offer incentives. I think it's a great move.
But isn't it sad that this is being heralded as the world-first, family-first economy? Shouldn't every economy, especially in the Western world, which is fighting for survival as we know it, shouldn't every economy be family first? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know. We've always known the nuclear family is the building block of any functioning, certainly flourishing society. You prioritise healthy families and the state becomes less and less depended on because families meet their own needs as people look after people. And that translates to childcare, that translates to elderly care when the grandparents are too old to look after themselves and maybe require someone around the house. If you prioritise families, a lot of things just take care of themselves, as they did previous decades when the state didn't look after half of that and we were all perfectly fine. I absolutely love this move. It should be, this is so simple.
Yeah.
And it should also be said that this is on top of his government already announcing a doubling of income tax benefits to families. And not only that, he's capped housing loans, the interest rate on housing loans in Hungary at 5%. If you make life affordable, people will have children. Healthy, flourishing couples want to have children. It is simply in societies like ours where everyone's like, heck, we're renting, we'll never scrape together enough for a deposit. They're scared to have children. If they had the money, they'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go. But it's the fact that no governments have prioritised this to the extent that they ought, that we see this is like, oh, this is just revolutionary. This ought to be the ABCs of government.
What you've just said comports with studies that have been done in Europe as to why our birth rate's so low. And the number one reason is economic pressure. People are concerned, if we have children, how are we going to be able to afford them? The other three were interesting. Environmental concerns was a reason why the birth rates are so low in Europe. And, of course, we've been bombarded
those people we don't mind if they don't have children.
about, global boiling.
Remove yourselves from the gene pool if that's how you're going to raise your kids.
Well, I mean, people seriously believe if you have a child, you are contributing to global warming, so we're better off not having children. Evolving social norms was another one, where you've got the demonisation of the family unit in favour of other models. And the final one was the intense focus on individual autonomy. That it's transformed from not about family or the future, but all about the here and now, what I want for my life. I don't want to make any sacrifices. So there's a bit to overcome.
I love the prevalence of that third one, though, these social norms that a lot of people are like, I don't think I want my kids subjected to all the stuff that I'm currently struggling to deal with in a modern day society that we're pummeled with every single day.